Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to today's Artist Talk. With me today, I have Tiffany Lawson and Gloria Ann Shows. Their work is currently seen at 934 Gallery, Between, With, and Away. I'm so pleased to have both of these artists with me here today. I was able to see their work in the gallery, which is open every Saturday from noon to 3, and you can also see their work online at 934gallery.org. Friends, thank you for joining me today. I'd like to give you a moment to introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your background in art, and let's hear a little bit about where you currently practice art as well. Tiffany, I'd love to start with you.
For sure. Of course, I blank as soon as you say my name.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm so glad it's not live. So I'm currently doing art on what I call the island, which is my home studio. I currently live on the east side of Columbus, in the Berwyn community. It's predominantly a Black neighborhood, full of retirees and single families. So it's actually a good place to be. And I call it the island because that's the way it feels. When I get here to my home, it's really a creative oasis, but I think of it more as an island.
I like that description.
And it just has become very, very comfortable. My neighbor has a chicken coop. There's a rooster back there. I think maybe there might be a hog somewhere. We have our lovely fat neighborhood cat that roams around and keeps the mice away. But anyway, it is definitely an island, and it has fed my creativity in a way that has allowed me to be free with myself and how I feel about my work. So it's actually, I've been here for 3 years, and it has actually been one of the best things in my life. So, yeah.
I like that description. Sure, it was a little, maybe felt like a faraway remote island during the quarantine. You felt a little bit more isolated.
Yeah, certainly. Of course, with limited access to everything, it makes it feel different when you can't leave the house. There's always an option of, whether or not, you're going to eat at home or not. Something that's simple for the night became pretty mundane. It was not a decision you could make anymore. So a little more isolation through the quarantine months, but it definitely came at the right time too. So it gave me the isolation I needed to kind of zero in and kind of focus on what I was doing and the work that I wanted to create, and also the message that I wanted to put out with my work.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your start with art? I know that you are a self-taught artist, and that you have a lot of inspiration and ties back to the Columbus art community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, growing up, my mother did a very good job at keeping me and my siblings programmed. So I did come through a lot of Columbus Rec and Parks programs, specifically art programs, that exposed me to galleries and museums across Ohio that maybe I wouldn't have had access to had I not been involved in those art groups. And quite, I guess, locally, I was involved in art art workshops that brought Grandpa Smokey Brown and Amina Robinson to the workshops to do, for like a week or two, when we did small art projects. And those are very, very fond memories that I carry with me. And it also kind of just lit a fire in me that, stories are meant to be told and shared, and there is a way to do that in a way that other people can relate to within their own lives, and that's what I try to carry forward.
Thank you. Thanks.
So, yeah. So it just, and being involved in those art programs as well, I got to. It just added so much diversity to my life in a way that I think had I not had that, I wouldn't be able to relate to different types of art. And also, I think that lends itself to being able to relate to other people, and lends itself to empathy and love and hopefully equality in the grand scheme of things. I think that's very, very important. And I think art does a good job at doing that.
There is, and there's something about what you said about storytelling in there that I want to touch on a little bit later in this conversation. I'm interested to hear a little bit more about the stories that your work or the characters within your work are telling you. I had a chance to talk to you a little bit while the show was going up, so I know spoilers a little bit of this already, but I can't wait for the rest of the audience to hear a little bit more. Gloria, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your art background, where you started, and where you currently practice.
Sure. First, Tiffany, I love that you used the descriptor of islands for where you work. I mean, I work with imagery of islands, and I equate islands to a lot of what a lot of my experiences, but I also like that you speak of this island, but also the importance of connection, storytelling, community, and I love the combining of the two. Yeah, sorry. Hi.
I can't lie to you. It took a little while to get there.
Yeah.
Because I guess when you think of the word island, a lot of people unfortunately think of it as something so secluded and so it just
I get that. Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Gloria and Shows. I'm a Filipino American artist based here in Columbus, Ohio. I move almost every year, so I guess I've just been around the Ohio State area, mostly because I moved here for graduate school. I currently lecture at the Ohio State University and at CCAD, the Columbus College of Art and Design. I'm an image maker. My preferred medium is relief printmaking. I work in a range of print-based processes, but I also work digitally and on fabric. At the root of everything is drawing. I've been drawing all my life, but I did eventually go to school for discontinued drawing. I had a long, meandering time with school. I had a year in technical college learning graphic design. Got my associate's degree in a small community college in Oklahoma City. Got my BFA from another small college in a suburb of Oklahoma City called University of Central Oklahoma. And then I eventually moved to Ohio to get my master's at OSU. And it seems so linear, but it was just a lot of this.
Yeah. So it gave you a whole lot of different experiences, though, like a whole lot of stories to tell in there.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't start with art. It was actually a lot of it started with my interest in psychology. I was really interested in early childhood development because a lot of what my own focus, my own obsessions often lie into, the seeds that were planted, all the really, all the maybe unnoticed or overlooked parts of growing up that actually made an impact. And so started with psychology, ended up somewhere over here where I touch on it a bit in my art, but yeah.
Because I studied communications at OSU. I graduated in 2005, so I actually do have a BA, but not in art. While I was at OSU, I did take a few art classes, but nothing really technical to say that I would call, I guess, classically trained. But I do, and I agree, like I find a lot of times in my studies with communications, sometimes I find myself just the way I think about where I'm trying to convey a specific story, it kind of is formed with those foundations of communications. So yeah, I hear what you're saying completely.
Yeah, I was gonna actually do a follow-up. That sounds like both of you have educational backgrounds in things beyond art too, like and so Tiffany, for you communications, Gloria, for you psychology, potentially childhood psychology. Does that do those roots inform anything in your current practice, or do you draw on things that you've learned in the past on your current practice?
Yeah, I would say so. Especially in regards to the characters, I would say that I'm able to pull out that I use to kind of tell the stories for me. So I can't say that the stories that I've told or the characters that I use are as closely related to my own life as I'd like for them to be. And I won't say kind of, I am more comfortable with that now, maybe not 100%, but at least I'm willing to share some parts of my personal experiences. So yeah, I would say that background most definitely forms the layers, I think, as I begin to build my characters.
Gloria, is there anything from that psychology realm that you pull strings on into your own current practice? There's no way on that.
Tiffany, again, like I was just like, yes, exactly. Yes. And a lot of my work is personally derived. Like I do refer to a lot of parts of my upbringing, but I find that I use my work more as a tool. I use it as a tool for reflection. And so because I'm reflecting on memory a lot of the time, and memory is due to change, it's due to shift, it's due to be informed by what's happening, what did I just eat, that reminds me of something else, I don't know, but I think that sure, like there are ways that I can kind of pull from my own interests in psychology and early childhood development, especially with how it relates to multicultural, multi-ethnic, multinational upbringings. And I think that a lot of that kind of just boils down to self-representation, and also, again, using it as a tool for reflection. So more often than not, it's my own kind of therapy.
Yeah. No,
But yeah.
Can you actually expand a little bit on your time abroad too, your time outside, because that also informs a bit of your work, right?
Sure. It definitely informs the form. I think that, well, first, I guess I'll start from the beginning, but I was born in the Philippines to a Filipino mom and American dad. I grew up, my earliest memories are in Japan, where I had lived until I was about 9. And then I moved to England I lived there until I was about 14. And so I spent most of my formative years overseas as a Filipino American who had never been to the United States. My only Americanness, was within this like fairly, as diverse as you can get in a military base kind of environment where, a lot of the families were mixed. And so I think that with my upbringing being in Japan and England and kind of in this mixed space of families, I found a lot of it was like trying to, I guess, assimilate and quickly try and figure out what the dominant social behaviors were and adjusting quick, if not quickly, quietly. Like I was a very shy, quiet child. And so I think that particular behavior was rewarded more so in Japan than England, to be quiet, reserved kid in the 90s. But yeah, my early adolescence was split between these two places. Most of my time there was spent learning customs, traditions, social behaviors. And I think that at the age that I was, absorbing these customs did not really, like in hindsight, I can't really pinpoint what exactly, that meant, or I can't say, oh yes, now I do this because of Japan. But I do find that I think if anything, I do have this enduring sense of obligation and duty to some sort of hierarchical structure, which I'm trying so desperately to break, because I think that community is more like equalizing of people is more important.
I'm also thinking about what a whiplash that must have been in your formative years to go from
Absolutely.
one culture to another
And they're
culture.
so different. Like I can't think of very many similarities in general. So I can imagine having to make that adjustment as a child. Yeah, that's interesting.
And then even to
Sure.
come to the United States after that, like, which is its own other, unique little bubble of culture. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, my first, introduction to the United States was, suburban Oklahoma. And so that was, yeah, I mean, there's a, not a different kind, but there's a different state of mind there, especially with, I guess, racially ambiguous folk. And so, yeah, I don't know. I was fairly young even when I moved to England. And I think that's where stark individualism was introduced. And so it wasn't so much of a shock to move to the United States other than, my identity as an outsider was heavily centered on that. And so it's interesting.
Can also
How that all
imagine
connects.
like having to be a representative of the United States, a place that you had never been, but people being like, "Oh, you're American," but yet you had never been there, never experienced the culture of what American is, and to be like, asked to present that culture.
Sure. Yeah, there was a lot of not hate, but a lot of reluctance. I mean, I even questioned my own relationship to these countries, being an outsider, being an agent of the United States on another country's soil, like these very complicated histories that these countries share with the United States. Just to be where I was at that particular point in time, who I was in that particular point in time, it's all so complicated and messy. And of course, like, you'll get varying degrees of acceptance of,
Yeah. I can't. I guess I can relate in a different way. Absolutely.
Do you want to expand on that, Tiffany?
Yeah.
Like, please, yeah.
Well, I mean, it is definitely a secret to no one at this point in anywhere in the world, I guess you could say, even with the climate of what's going on in humanity in general. So I can relate on a level of feeling like an outsider and being treated as one as well. But on my own soil, in the only place I've ever known, in ways that I don't understand.
Yeah.
So I definitely can relate on that, absolutely.
Do these experiences, I want to say that this is an obvious question, but if you'd like to expand on it, do these experiences bubble up in your work? Do they end up showing up in your work, Tiffany or Gloria? Like these experiences of feeling that outsiderness or that feeling of like trying to figure out a sense of belonging, whether it is just exploring what that feeling is, or even coming to terms with that feeling, or coming to a peace with that feeling. I'm interested to see, as we talked a little bit about, earlier about, childhood psychology and discovering memories and whatnot in Gloria's work. Tiffany, I'm also curious, like, does that feeling present itself then in your work, and how so?
It is definitely not an elephant in the room ever. So absolutely, it's something that I experience, unfortunately, daily, in one way or another. I can't count a day that goes by where I don't experience some type of situation where I feel invisible or in some ways less than. And I do, and I have, I don't know, I have a little more confidence in letting that into my work. Because I think for a long time, unlike Gloria, I think that's so brave of you. I have been reluctant to share my personal experiences and some of my truths in my work, in that I don't want it to be so loud and unrelatable. So I think it takes a lot of bravery to confront that with artwork, with my artwork. But recently, with the pieces that are in the show now, I was able to do that in a subtle way, in a way that was comfortable for me. But most definitely, absolutely.
I want to thank you both too for sharing your experiences with me and with our audience too. I think it's incredibly important for us to hear your voices on this. Tiffany, you present me with a great segue into your current work and the work that's in this show. I'd like to ask you both a little bit about, take a moment and think about when you applied to the show, which would have been, if I'm not mistaken, it would have been around the start of the pandemic last year. We put a call out, and was probably about April or May last year. We're putting out a call for entries for 2021. And without knowing what the future had in store, you both submitted applications to be showing work at 934. Tiffany, at that time, at that moment, was before the summer. It was before we settled in for the long haul with the pandemic, and it was probably before George Floyd as well. What was your proposal for the show? What was your envisioning of the work that you were going to create?
Really, the show that I had submitted or had put together, envisioned for this year, had, of course, I had named it Temple of My Solitude. It was actually kind of me exploring and trying to get comfortable on the island. So it was a whole lot of self-exploration, and I was just trying to see exactly where that was going to take me. So it opened up a lot of my processes, I think, in regards to truth-telling in my storytelling. So once we shut down, things changed a little, and I had to find a way to, settle into the solitude. It wasn't so much that I was choosing the solitude, it was that it was what it was. So you start looking inward, and I think a lot of us did that. And I did use my work as an outlet. So I was able to let go of a lot of things. I was able to make peace with some things. And so I guess my solitude changed into a community. I built a community.
Yeah. I want to dig in a little bit more on that too. That community that you built for yourself. Does this have to do with these characters and your process of hearing a story with the material that you have around you? Please correct me if I'm going about this. If I'm not using the right language to describe the process that you had. I know that we talked about it briefly before about the speaking of these characters. Is that the community that you are talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
In short. So I use brown paper bags because I do believe that they give they emit a richness that white paper just doesn't give. And also for me, with the brown bags are recycled material. They've had a life of their own before we touch them. And I don't know about you, but I reuse them. So they're just always around. So as I began to shift from my solitude, I guess, to a more community based mindset, I started to sketch. The faces came first. And I didn't know exactly when or if I was ever sketching somebody that I knew, or if it was just faces. But for the most part, I didn't recognize any of the faces that I sketched. And I assume that they're probably combinations of people that I know, all in one. But at the same time, just being able to personify, I guess, in a way, exactly what I was feeling at the time. So even going from just a fully blank canvas to what I conveyed with the show, it was, there's no piece that I didn't make. And I think that was, for me, therapeutic. There was no part of it that I didn't create. So there's little pieces of me. Well, I guess not little, the whole thing. But I created a community. So my solitude turned into a community. Absolutely.
And as a viewer, I want to say that I see a great sense of strength and power in your pieces. Like when we think about solitude, sometimes there's that like we think, oh, like solitude is sad, solitude is quiet, solitude is small, and I don't see any of that in your work. I see strength, I see like loudness in a great way, and a lot of bigness from your work.
Thank you. I think that in the narratives that I put with each piece, were kind of, specifically the Sterling B. Floyd, the third piece. I actually wrote the narrative of that back in 2013. And I'm not exactly sure. It was around the time of a police shooting, but I don't know which one. Unfortunately, there's been many. So that was raw reaction to that situation. And also, I think I also pull from, I've been down at the courthouse. I work with the courts. I've been there for 15 years. And the experiences and the things that I have seen through my job, I think also pour into my work as well. So there's a whole lot. I think I'm thankful for parts of the pandemic in that I moved from my solitude to a community.
Yeah, thank you. I have also tried to find my silver linings and my blessings from the pandemic as well.
They're in there. Yeah.
Gloria, same sort of question.
Yeah.
Again, putting on our hat and remembering back to this time last year, things have just shut down, but yet we're putting out a call for entries. Where did you envision your show starting? What kind of work were you hoping to make? And then guide us through how that changed.
So I'm not sure the work changed all too much. Something that fostered a sense of community for me, especially in the arts, were frequent get-togethers in Oklahoma where my friends and I would clear a table and play music and endlessly make. Sometimes we'd make comics. We'd make makeshift board games. We'd create random challenges like scrolling our phones and make dating app trading cards. Like it was just like really nonsensical stuff, real low pressure. And I guess a lot of that changed when I moved here for graduate school. Before the shutdown started, I was planning a trip back to Oklahoma. And I was looking forward to returning to old ways of making, just something to to loosen up a lot of the tightness, loosen up all those years of insular regimentation with my own making. When the pandemic happened, I did what many artists did at this time, which was attempting to close the gap with mail art. I made a long list of folks with whom I had collaborated more or less with in the past. Some people who I didn't collaborate with at all. And I was just like, here's an excuse to reach out. Let's do a thing. And, a lot of them were just people I admired and wanted to connect with. And, I'm all about art being a visual language. So I wanted to give an opportunity for largely visual conversations with people that were beyond where I could reach them. And in some cases, that was just down the street. With the pandemic, just locking ourselves in, it kind of opened up the list of people that I no longer had access to I wanted the visual conversation to be more than this pandemic sucks. I miss you. Because I mean, it's,
So
you're saying
A little more intentional.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I thought I'd start small. I sent out 10, proposals to people. They all said yes, yay. And so I just sent, I sent fabric, I sent prints, I sent digital drawings, like anything I could, anything I could find. And we went back and forth a couple times. My approach didn't change much, except that some of my friends, to my surprise, wanted to start the visual conversation. They sent something first, which was so exciting. I gave no guidance, like no limitations. The process was.
That was my follow-up question was, how do you guide collaboration when you're apart from someone? Did you get on video chat, phone call, text? No, it was just all.
No, because we were all stuck. Like, I was having these conversations with people every now and again, and it would be like, this was really terrible. I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, do you want to make about it? Like,
that's pretty cool. So
we didn't talk.
I like that. Like, do you want to talk about it? No. Do you want to make about it?
Yeah. I like absolutely. Because I don't want to talk about it. Some especially personal stuff. Like it's tough. It takes a lot of bravery. It takes vulnerability, and it's not a place that people want to go very often. But I think, unfortunately, it's very important that we find a place where we're all safe enough to do that.
Yeah.
And in Gloria's case, you created that with the mail art, and you don't want to talk about it. Let's make about it. I think that's awesome. Mm-hmm. I think that's sweet.
I think that art especially provides us that opportunity to have that conversation. Like, it provides the prompt, it provides the conversation starter. When you enter a space and you see work, and maybe there is or isn't a narrative to go with it, maybe there is or isn't a title to go with it, but it provides an opportunity to connect, to learn, to start having a difficult conversation gently, almost like it provides this soft, open space to have a difficult conversation. Absolutely. And it can create that sense of community too, which I feel is our common thread in this show, is that sense of building community spacing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So where would you guys like to see your like, what kind of space would you like to take your work into next, now that we're slowly starting to see this end of the pandemic? There's the opportunity to create community in other ways, right? In the ways that we were used to from before, but also now new ways that we've learned how to create community with one another. We've learned how to dialogue with one another in ways that we haven't before. Were there points that you have learned in the last year that you're going to now use to create work in the future? And it is okay if you're still unpacking that.
I'd like to be a little bit more tactile, I guess, if that's the word, with my work, in a way that, I guess, an even scale up, like, a little larger. But in terms of some of the things that I learned about my work through, I guess, the pandemic, I just want to continue to. I would like to continue to feel safe enough to share my stories in a way that other people can relate to, and hopefully gain better understanding of one another. I can't stress that enough.
It's lovely, Tiffany. I feel like for me, before the pandemic, I was grappling heavily with the material consequences of making. Like I had a really hard time. I'm a printmaker. Everything I make is in abundance for the most part. And so I felt that, I'm still kind of grappling with that because I didn't really have too much, like even in this time, I've slowed down significantly in work that I make in insular spaces. But I find that collaboration has been very easily a way for me to create an excuse for making, at least for now, while I try and figure out, at least for me, what's worth making. I'm not entirely sure I want to highlight my voice at this moment. There's so many other people that I want to uplift. And so I think that for me, I'm not really sure where it's going, only that I'm thinking about it.
That's valid.
Absolutely.
I know that this conversation and both of your works in the space have helped me feel a better connection to my artist community and has helped expand that sense of community for me, right? Like I did not know either of you before this show, and now I just feel like a stronger connection to your work and therefore more enriched as somebody who cares about the arts community and my Columbus community in general. So I want to thank both of you. I'm grateful for this conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. This has been wonderful.
Oh,
It's been real easy.
Yeah.
Real naturally. I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, both of you have been so lovely too in this conversation. I do want to wrap up with some questions of advice. I would love to hear from you. So right now we are in the same place we were last year as far as 934 has opened up our call for submissions, and we are focusing not only on individual artists, but our call is also open for curators as well, for people who have a vision for the space and want to curate a show. Is there, I'll kind of propose a few different questions and pick and choose what you'd like. What kind of work would you like to see at 934 within our walls, within the Milo Grogan community, within the Columbus community? And then what kind of advice would you give to emerging artists that maybe haven't shown work at 934 or at a space like 934 yet? What kind of advice would you like to give them about thinking about their shows?
That's a good question. I don't know if I'm really in a place where I feel like I can give advice, but if I did, the one thing I would say is try to be true to yourself, whether that be to know that you're unsure, or whether that be to know that you're certain. Be sure about one of those things, and be confident in that decision. And also just open up. That would be my greatest advice. Just open up, stay open, and that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, be confident in your vulnerability.
Yeah, embrace those imperfections, accept them, and the more you embrace other people's imperfections, I think the more balanced you'll be as an individual. I think in nature, imperfections are beautiful, are natural. We expect them in nature, but in humanity, unfortunately, we don't accept imperfections, and it lends itself to hate, injustice. And I think if we were all to accept those imperfections, I think we'd see things evolve. And I think that is part of staying open.
That's pretty strong and pretty powerful. I'm thinking back to your connection to wabi sabi, which is the Japanese philosophy or thought process of you know,
Yeah, and that's aesthetic. Basically, each imperfection makes it unique and gives it its own unique beauty.
yeah. I never thought about turning that.
Evolves.
Yeah, I never thought about turning that on us, turning that on humanity.
Yeah.
I can't even answer. Tiffany, just once again, just yeah, I mean, that's essentially what I was gonna get at. I think that, of course, like most people want to come into these proposals wanting to show complete or in progress bodies of work. But there's also plenty of opportunities on ideas, like especially like in regards to that certainty and uncertainty, things that have yet to be. I think that a lot of it, and I think more than anything now, like we've had plenty of time to be introspective and try to envision the things we want to see and be surrounded by. And so hopefully we have, we're coming up with ideas that are hopefully going to manifest in future shows.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, because even in some of the pieces that are there in the show now, some of the components of those pieces are from years ago. That I kind of put to the side and couldn't figure out what they were doing or where they were going, but fit like the perfect puzzle piece into what I was currently working on. It was the strangest thing as that those things began to merge. And at first I will say that I did fight it. It just didn't make sense. Like here I am working on this brand new body of work, and why am I even touching this thing? I haven't touched it for 4 years, or, I slid that to the side and I thought it was junk, but eventually things began to just kind of flow together, and it worked out.
I think that's almost a natural reaction of ours, is to see something from the past or something old of ours, something that we worked on before, and push it aside as like, oh, well, that's from when I was younger or less experienced or not as good, and I've learned, so I don't need that anymore. But I think that that's a fallacy, right? Like we do need those pieces, we do need those moments, because it informs who we are now, and it's almost as if like that connection needs to exist back to our older, younger, less experienced self.
Even like Gloria said, like, even if it's something that you made about, right? But you have this old piece that you didn't want to talk, but you made about, and somehow it found new life. You revived it, or even maybe reconciled with whatever it was that you had to get out when you made it. So yeah, it's a constant flow.
I like that flow. Yeah. So go back, look at old sketchbooks.
Yes, ma'am.
Look at old portfolios, and see what in new light inspires you from that. And then don't be so worried about it being perfectly polished, especially when you submit. I think that's very key. Like, let it flow, be ready for the pivot.
Ready for the pivot.
That pivot.
That pivot though. Yeah.
That I didn't get that tattooed on me. I feel like that was my entire last, year. Get ready for the pivot.
Pivot though.
Well, thank you both again so much. I feel especially grateful for this conversation with the two of you today. And thank you everyone for tuning in for another Artist Talk with 934 Gallery. Please visit 934gallery.org. You can see work from both Tiffany Lawson and Gloria Ann shows in their Between, With, and Away. If you liked today's Artist Talk, feel free to donate to 934 Gallery. We are a nonprofit, 100% volunteer-run space located in the Milo Grogan neighborhood of Columbus, Ohio. We do what we do because we love the arts and we love uplifting artists. So help us do that. Help us keep the lights open. Thank you again so much, and I want to wish you all the best, and I can't wait to come and see more of your work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.